Attention, due to the nature of the films discussed, the Civil Gore podcast may contain adult language and themes.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 91 of the Civil Gore podcast. I am your non-dulcety-toned host, Tim.
Yes, and I am Brian. And so that really was Tim. It was not me pretending to be Tim and trying to just mimic his dulcetness. No, he is very under the weather with a bout of laryngitis. So much to your chagrin when I say this, but I will be trying to do the heavy lifting of talking here tonight. So those of you fans of Tim's dulcety tones, I apologize in advance. We'll make it up to you. We'll do an all Tim speak episode coming up.
Yeah, over the weekend, I had a bout of just completely losing my voice. It's actually about 50% better than it was, which tells you how bad it was at one time. So, but I'm hanging in there. The show must go on, right?
Yeah. And everyone's wishing, like, why couldn't it have been Brian? Why couldn't it have been Brian? and somehow I've never ended up with laryngitis, much to people's wishes, I'm sure, out there. But I have not done it. But we'll try and get this show on the road. We got a lot of fun stuff tonight. And we're going to actually we decided we were going to include our good buddy, of course, our man on the ground, Steve Cohn, with his Toy Fair report of all the new horror stuff. But we're going to actually just due to a scheduling snafu, so to speak, because I will be out of town next week. We're going to make it a little mini-sode of like 90% Cohn. So I know you've all been secretly wanting that. So we're going to do that. So. Next week, we will not have a regular episode. It will be like a short. I mean, Tim and I will be on there with him, but we'll be Cone will be giving us the news, and there's a lot of cool stuff that came out of Toy Fair. So so even though it's a mini-sode, it's not a true episode. I think you guys will love it because there's a lot of good stuff on there.
More ways to spend your money.
Yes,
that's what we're good at.
We are
making you spend your money.
Right.
So let's get right into it. This is our first chop. So, Brian, the 40 Years of Terror project continues. So, this year was 1978, which I was looking forward to because I always love my 70s movies.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good year.
And, oh man, some great movies came out this year. Of course, I'd seen a lot of those, but there was one I had not seen, and I had to check it out because it is a good old-fashioned haunted house movie. It is called The Evil, starring the late, great Richard Crenna.
Oh, okay.
And this one was very interesting. It kind of reminded me of The Changeling in that this doctor buys this old Civil War era mansion, and he gets a bunch of his friends to come help fix the place up. Well, what they don't realize is this place is super haunted. Super duper haunted. It has a lot of classic haunted house tropes in it, which is not a bad thing. It's entertaining.
Yeah. The
only problem I had with it is some of the effects are pretty dated now. But it was still, there was some fantastic kills. This is really like a slasher movie in which the house is the killer. And so there's a lot of great kill scenes in this, a lot of interesting, unique scenes. Very entertaining. I will say I was let down by the ending. The ending goes with this kind of goofball, cornball ending that kind of explains too much. But other than that, it's definitely worth a watch. It's very entertaining. Richard Crenna's fantastic in it. And it has some really, really cool death scenes in it. So I would highly recommend The Evil from 1978. Oh,
nice. That sounds cool. And I always like Richard Crenna.
Yeah, he's great.
He's great. Even though my favorite thing he's done was not even was not a horror film. It was a Summer Rental, the John Candy film. But if I start doing imitations of him in that movie, forget it. We'll be here all day. So, so that's good. And Tim fought through that. I could tell he was obviously Tim's not his exuberance that usually goes into his projects. So guys, I think we should all give Tim just a hand right now. Anyway, look at he's fighting through this podcast. This is great. But so at least I'll get a break now because I'm going to go through my Twilight Zone project for a little bit. Definitely did not have as good a disc as I had last week, which was like all winners. I mean, none of them are bad. I would never say a Twilight Zone is bad. I do enjoy all of them, but definitely.
I was trying to remember most of these on here. I had seen them, and I could not even place some of them. I was like, I don't even remember that one.
Yeah, well, actually, the one here's something a little bit of Brian trivia here. The first Twilight Zone I'd ever seen was on this disc. And so this is what got me into the series, actually, because I was watching this with my dad, and I was like, what is this? What is this show? And he said, oh, it's the Twilight Zone, and you'll watch this one. You'll like this. And when I get up to it, I'll let you know which one that was. But so the first one on there was A World of Difference. It says, a businessman sitting in his office inexplicably finds that he is on a production set in a world where he is a movie star. Uninterested in the newfound fame, he fights to get back his home and family. And this one is just, I mean, it's okay. It's not really supernatural in any way. It's really just kind of like a little bit sad, actually. The guy kind of just cracks up, I guess. He's going through a divorce, and he's just not... he just won't let go to his role, so to speak, and he thinks he's the character. So, I mean, it was pretty basic. But the performances were good, so it wasn't horrible. This one, Long Live Walter Jameson. So a father forbids a history professor from marrying his daughter when he discovers that the captivating lecturer is actually an immortal who has lived over for 1,000 years. And this stars the great Kevin McCarthy, which, of course, had a role in the Twilight Zone, the movie, as Uncle Walt. Yep. Which was just classic. And he was just, I mean, Kevin McCarthy. I mean, he's one of those just actors that was great in everything he did. So he was really, really good in this. And overall, it had a kind of creepy ending to this one. So this one, actually, I liked more than I thought I would. I mean, I vaguely remember it. Like I said, I have seen all of them. Just there were some that I've seen way more than the one time. And this one, I believe I had only seen once. The next one is People Are Alike All Over. And this is the first one. This has the, this is the one that was where, was the first Twilight Zone I ever saw. And it was fearing the worst. The lone survivor of a crash landing on Mars finds the native inhabitants, to his relief, very hospitable indeed. But there's a catch. And here's a spoiler alert on this one. So this was the one with Roddy McDowell, where he crashes on to Mars, and he gets out, and there's a whole bunch of people that look like humans, but they could kind of read his mind, so there's definitely something up there. And they give him this amazing house with the best scotch and cigars, and it turns out he decides that he realizes that he's locked in, so he starts to panic, and he pulls the curtain away, and there's just another wall, and he realizes something's not right, and then the wall pulls away, and it's bars behind it, and he's basically in a zoo. An alien zoo, which I remember when I first saw that, it blew me away, and I'm like, oh my God, I love this show. There's a little trivia there. The next one is Execution, and this is when a 20th century scientist tests out his time machine. He accidentally retrieves a 19th century murderer, saving him from the hangman's noose. Unaware of the man's history, the two attempt to acclimatize, I guess, him to his new surrounding. It was weird. I don't think I read that before I did it. But this one actually starred the professor from Gilligan's Island was in this. And this one is kind of like a fish out of water. He becomes he's in the modern times now, and he reacts poorly to pretty much everything. And you can imagine he's like a crazy, like a Western villain. So he's not a good person there. This one was I like this one too. It's called The Big Tall Wish. It's an aging boxer finds himself the winner of a match he thought he had lost, the result of a 6-year-old's frantic wish. But can a world-weary, embittered man still believe in miracles, or will he turn his back on it? This one was really good, and the kid in it was just absolutely amazing. His little kid who was the kid that made the wish was just fantastic. So that was a really good one. This one was the next one was A Nice Place to Visit, and it's when a bad guy, Henry Francis Valentine, dies in a shootout with police. He wakes up the next world where his every wish is granted forever and ever. So it's one of those twists where he thinks he has everything, so he assumes he's in heaven, and surprise, surprise, the twist is he is not. He's in the other place. So he basically gets tired of all the good fortune that comes his way, and then he basically says it's not exciting when he wins. Like, literally, he'll go to win every round of craps, then he goes, every time he walks by the slot machine, he pulls it, tons of money comes out, he gets all the women, this fancy place, he just gets sick of it, basically.
Yeah.
So, and this last one, I
love this one.
Super creepy. Oh my God, that girl was freaky, but this one was great. This one is like this one could have been like almost stretched out to feature length. I could see a movie, because I think there's movies that have kind of taken this plot, but basically it's a school teacher keeps seeing a strange little girl in her apartment building. It's not really a great selling description by IMDb there, but it's really creepy because, first of all, he's a little interesting piece. The lady's name is Helen Foley. And Helen Foley was also in the Twilight Zone, the movie, Catherine Quinlan's character in the one where it was based off of, Anthony, where he could make a wish and all that.
Right.
They recycled the name, which I thought was a nice
nod.
Oh,
that's interesting.
Yeah, I caught that right away, actually. And this one, so the girl in it was one of those young girls, but but she's so creepy because she's very very astute and the voice just says, "You don't know who I am yet." Just super creepy. And then it's basically you find out that this is actually her, and it's basically this girl is a manifestation of a repressed memory when her mother was killed. And basically, by the little girl's clue, she ends up finding out that the murderer has now come back to visit her, who's been keeping tabs on her. It's super just creepy in every way.
It's a very good episode.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the best ones. So I was glad I finished the disc off strong with that one. So
yeah, that one was called Nightmare as a Child.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot the title. Yes, Nightmare as a Child.
So next up, this one was very exciting. Greg Nicotero announced the first episode for the Shudder Creepshow TV series has wrapped.
Yes.
So now I can breathe a sigh of relief. I'm not stressed it's going to be canceled.
Right.
They've actually filmed it.
Yes,
so.
we have one episode. Bare minimum, we'll at least get one episode.
Corey Feldman has joined the cast of 13. What's that?
Well, it's 13 Fanboy is called.
13 Fanboy, yeah. Friday the 13th fan film directed by Deborah Voorhees, of all people.
Yeah, so this is the one. Remember, she was the one played the girl in part 5. Very memorable for her certain assets that she provided to the scene.
And her coincidental last name.
Yes, and her last name, of course. That's another catch. But yeah, this is the one where she actually so she's getting it. She's got a lot of the actresses and actors from Friday the 13th. Like Tom Matthews is back in it. C.J. Graham, who played Jason in part 6. Deborah Voorhees. Oh my God, I'm dropping her name, but the one from from Friday the 13th Final Chapter, and she was the one in Weird Science. I'm totally drawing a blank on her name. I apologize. And we follow her on Twitter and Instagram too, so shame on me. Yeah, so she's in, and basically, so it's about a stalker and a fan of Friday the 13th that goes after the Friday the 13th women in real life. So, and cool. So they got Corey Feldman in there, which I thought was pretty cool. So, I mean, anytime Corey Feldman gets added to something, right, that's got to be good, right?
Yeah, it's got to be good.
Right, yeah. So, and just so I can stand corrected, I'm not going. It's Judy Aronson, so I apologize to Judy Aronson if she's some reason listening to our podcast. But yes, she's actually one of my favorites that was in the movie too, which is even worse that I forgot her name. But anyway, yeah.
Next up, Dead by Daylight. That's a popular horror game. I actually have not played this one yet, I'm ashamed to say, but because I played the Friday the 13th game instead. But Dead by Daylight's coming to the Nintendo Switch this fall, so you have another platform you can play that on.
Yeah, now you could get it and play with the kids.
I need to grab this. It's on Steam sales for all the time.
Oh, yeah. Speaking I have to say, Steam sales, you guys, you got to pay attention because between that and the site Fanatical, they do a lot of great bundles and sales.
I just bought the Colossal bundle.
Oh
today.
Yeah, I saw that. Right? Was it like $3.99 or something like that?
It has a $8.99 tier. I went for the full $8.99 tier.
Oh, that's
it's like
right.
13 games.
Wow,
it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah. What did I buy? We bought the Cryptical one. I bought the other day for $1.99. It came with 12 games. Now, granted, even if you get one good one out of the bunch for $1.99, really, you're going to argue? And you don't. And what's great about Steam is you don't even need to download them all. When you're ready, download them.
Well, I played out of that Cryptic bundle. I already played that Dreamwalkers, that point and click one.
Oh, is it good?
And, I enjoyed it, and Anna would help me with finding the hidden object stuff and that kind of thing. So sometimes I like those little casual games, just for a break.
Oh yeah, I have a bunch on the iPad sometimes that are like that. It's really fun. And actually, I unfortunately we probably the thing it was on sale and it was gone. The sale was over by the time we recorded, but Tim and I both picked up the park. It was like, what was it? $2.99?
That was $2.99, $3.99.
Yeah, really cheap. And I had it on the Xbox, but I'm like, shoot, I'm gonna pick this up for my computer because I play things on my computer way more now than I do on Xbox. So I'm like, and this is great because I can travel with this, and that's a great horror themed game, and it takes place at a theme park. So Tim and I are in.
Yep. So, Brian, this next one, I've been really dying to hear your thoughts, non-spoiler thoughts on Happy Death Day to You.
Yes. So, as you know, Tim and I are both huge fans of the first Happy Death Day and Jessica Roth. And So I will. So without going into spoilers, of course, Julie was likes the first one too, and she was obsessed on finding out why this time loop occurred. Because there was that guy with that line where the director said, "Oh, the first one's hiding in plain sight," which he did explain if you go online. But if you want to be surprised, wait until you see the movie and then go look for it, of course. But yeah, so it's definitely. I have to tell you, I think what makes this franchise and this movie. First of all, we both loved it. I'll just go right there with that. Both it had a great amount of comedy, really light on the horror. The horror really takes a back seat in this one. But you know what? You've grown to the franchise is just a really something special, with the cast. Like the entire cast was phenomenal, and they added a couple of new people in, or expanded roles of like the roommate, and there's his couple of science buddies are in there, and so it's just you can't help but enjoy the movie because of its characters. You want to see them as much as you can, and this one does. I think this has really plays up the comedy, and in fact, there's I would dare to say, as good as Jessica Roth is, who's phenomenal, Danielle Boosman, who plays the quote unquote mean sorority sister in the first one, she's back in this one, and she has a almost movie stealing scene in this.
Wow.
And it's just it's the best I could compare it to. It's almost more of like a Back to the Future 2 than it is like a horror film. So I recommend this, my fullest highest recommendation. It's and I'm sorry if I just sound kind of vague, because obviously I'm not trying to give away anything other than just go see it. If you loved the first one, you will absolutely love this one. And I mean, at some points it's I almost part of me is leaning to almost liking this one more than the first a bit. So
that's high praise.
Yeah, and I absolutely love the first one. And I will say, stay to through the end credits. There is a mid-credit scene, so that is very important to the franchise. So I would definitely stay for that. And once again, just phenomenal job by the cast. The whole cast, especially Jessica Roth, stands out as we've mentioned before. How good she is in this. She buys in completely. Actually, they all do, and that's what makes it, I think, such a good franchise and good sequel to an already great movie. So,
all right, next up, another big sequel we're definitely looking forward to. Terrifier 2, the official page is up on Facebook. Yes. So this is happening, no doubt.
Oh yes,
can't wait.
Art will be back.
Art is back,
and we can't wait.
Cannot wait.
Yes.
Yeah. Now this one's interesting. An Evil Dead 2 escape room is coming to Seattle, and it sounds like your brother's going to get to review this one, maybe.
Yeah, because I think it opens this summer, and as you know, I think I'd mentioned the show. Seth had moved to Seattle, so he's going to be there. So, and he's a huge Evil Dead fan. So I told him about this. I'm like, so we're expecting you to go
full review.
Yeah, he said, of course, if I go out to visit, we'll go there too. But I'm not sure if I'll get out there by the summer, and I don't want to make him wait, because sometimes these are limited experiences. Like like that Resident Evil one, which I'm still kicking myself for missing because it was only about 4 months out. So I will not definitely tell him to go right away when he can. And Seth has some good escape room experience. Tim has actually had done one with him. We did one when we were in the city.
Yep, I've successfully escaped with Seth.
Yes,
so.
and we did before that once too. So Seth, it's funny, when Seth's with us, he's 2 for 2. But
right.
Unfortunately, I heard his third one, he did not do so well. But it was one of those ones where I don't think they had enough people. It was a dual escape room where I think there were 2 teams. And they have to both meet to each other, and then once you get there, and I think it was the second room they didn't get through. So, but Seth has a really good thought process for those escape rooms. That was pretty fun.
Those are a lot of fun.
Oh,
those are so much fun.
Now just talking about it got me in the mood to do one. I might have to put that on the radar. Get to escape room soon.
So we got some news on the Child's Play TV series. The working title is Chucky, and will center on new characters, yet be closer to the tone of the first 2 films. And Brad Dourif will return as the voice of Chucky. So I am totally looking forward to this, way more than I am this weird remake.
Yeah, yeah. And the fact that I like the first 2, remember the first 2 were definitely heavier on the horror. So I'm glad they're kind of
Right,
going back to
yeah.
that roots. I mean, yes, it was fun that Chucky was cracking one-liners, but the fact that they're going to go to a much more darker tone, I like that. And hopefully, and thank God Brad Dourif's back, not like that guy that did the Chucky on the Kill Tale records, because I don't think that was the real one. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't, oh, and this was great. This was so exciting. So Cody did us a solid and wrote into the, I guess he's pronounced it ID10T, idiot.
Yeah.
ID10T podcast hosted by Chris Hardwick, formerly the Nerdist podcast. And I'm a huge Chris Hardwick fan. He's a pop culture god.
What'd you call him? Nerd royalty, right?
Nerd royalty, yeah. And so Cody emailed him about our show, and he actually read her email on the air. So we got a shout out on the ID10T podcast, which was super, super exciting. So big thanks to Cody and Chris for that shout out.
Yeah, and I mean, it wasn't like just a quick like, oh yeah, go listen to Civil Gore. No, he went in. He actually said Brian and Tim, which was awesome.
Yeah, it was very exciting.
So awesome job, Cody.
And I did not get to check out this next one, but Brian did. So I'm going to let him talk about Cherokee Creek.
Yeah, so the director, Todd Jenkins, actually sent us this. Well, he's writer and director. It's called Cherokee Creek. And he, so every once in a while we get sent these links to films, and this was good because we always get to discover stuff we may not have noticed or been on the radar. Because as we've explained before, there is so much horror content out there, especially on the streaming services. So I have a feeling this one, although based on the plot of this film, I think Tim and I might have leaned towards watching this one anyway. But so it's right now. I'll say first, it's available on iTunes, Google Play, and Vudu. And so here's I'm going to write what he wrote as a good description of it. It's basically the movie is about a bachelor party in the woods that gets crashed by the ultimate party animal, Bigfoot. So he describes it. He says he likes to describe it as The Hangover meets Friday the 13th with a slice of American Pie and some Pulp Fiction. And I have to say that's a pretty good explanation of it, because there's definitely a lot of kind of crazy zaniness that you'd find in like a horror trope. And I will say the effects were all practical effects, and they were done like really well. There's a lot of good gore, and the Bigfoot was really well done too. And it's just, if you like those like zany horror comedies, this one is definitely something you might want to check out. Like I said, it's available for streaming on the iTunes, Vudu, and Google Play. So check that out if you get a chance. And thank you again for sending that to us, because like I said, we always love to check out like independent films and stuff and new horror stuff that we may not always be, out there to know about. So thanks again, Todd, and everyone check it out. It's called Cherokee Creek.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll definitely have to check that out. So then last but not least, Brian, I don't know what this is, but it sounds super cool. Yeah. It's called I Like Scary Movies, which already had my attention. Yeah. And it's an interactive horror movie experience coming to LA. So tell us about this. Yeah. It sounds awesome.
So this literally popped up on our Twitter feed this afternoon. So I popped it into the rundown because I think I don't want to forget about it and since we're not doing a traditional show next week, I don't want this to go 2 weeks and then we just forget it, because this sounds right up our alley. So what it sounds like is I think Warner Brothers Studio might be behind it too a little bit, and people that have worked on Comic-Con, those immersive display booths. So there's going to be some really good tech behind this, and I guess based on the description, it almost sounds like it's just really high effect and well done walkthrough haunt, but featuring just iconic scenes. Probably so you're going to get probably the level you get possibly at Halloween Horror Nights. It sounds like, but I don't know if it's one walkthrough exhibit for all these different movies, or it's each one has its own little mini walkthrough. I'm not sure about the details on that yet, but some of the ones they said the big homages they're going to do is to Beetlejuice, The Shining, Nightmare on Elm Street, It, and The Lost Boys, all movies which I think would make great houses.
All awesome movies.
Yeah, I mean, some were at Universal Horror Nights already, so we know that can be done in that format. So that would be really cool to see, especially the Nightmare on Elm Street one, because we never got to see those houses when they were done, because that was before Tim and I were really got to go to a Horror Nights. So I think that one alone will be good. And actually, a little thing I did put on the rundown, but speaking of Horror Nights, they officially announced that Hellraiser is not one of the houses. So if you guys are keeping like a score sheet and trying to, it's kind of fun always to pick to see what Horror Nights houses are coming. you can cross Hellraiser off the list. That was confirmed as not to be one of the houses. So,
although I still think that would be a cool house.
Oh my God, it would be great.
All right, well, let's get right into our Blu-ray releases for the week of February 26th. This is our Discmemberment.
Wait, no, please, God, no, don't cut off my...
All right, so we got a pretty good selection of discs this week, Brian. And first up is my pick of the week. This is Willard from 2003. This is, of course, the remake starring Crispin Glover, Arlie Ermey, and Laura Haring, directed by Glenn Morgan. And if you don't know about Willard, it's about a young man with an unusual connection to rats who uses them at his own sociopathic will. And I had to pick this one as my pick of the week because of Crispin Glover.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Anything he's in is just captivating, no matter the quality of the movie. Just watching him alone, and this has actually got some terrific features. It has a brand new 2K remaster. We have a brand new audio commentary with writer-director Glenn Morgan and director of photography Robert McLaughlin. A brand new audio commentary with animal trainers Mark Harden and David Alsbury of Animals for Hollywood. I think this would be fascinating.
Yeah, that's
animal trainer commentary.
Right, for the whole movie. It's not like a special featurette. It's the whole commentary.
Yeah, a new interview with writer-director Glenn Morgan, a new interview with director of photography Robert McLaughlin, a new behind-the-scenes footage from Animals for Hollywood, which looks like some rat training footage there, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
We have the original audio commentary with writer-director Glenn Morgan, producer James Wong, actors Crispin Glover, and Arlie Ermey, which that's got to be an entertaining commentary.
Do you think the whole time Crispin Glover just go like he'll be like saying something, he'll just go no. Like, do you have the commentary, Ted? Ted? Sorry, that's my bad.
And then Arlie Ermey's just over there shouting drill sergeant type stuff the whole time.
Which Tim would do if his voice was better. So.
Yeah, I would. The Year of the Rat, a documentary on the making of Willard. A real rat documentary, deleted and alternate scenes with optional commentary. The music video Ben with optional commentary. Behind the scenes footage and interviews from the electronic press kit, theatrical trailer, and TV spot. So this is yet another packed Shout Factory disc for a kind of an odd little movie, but one that I think has gotten maybe some cult classic status, especially with Crispin Glover starring this particular remake.
I love that, the Rat People Friend or Foe, a real rat documentary. Is that are rat people like people that like rats, or like half man, half rat?
I'm hoping it's the former, but this is a horror show, so who knows?
That's true.
Next up is an interesting one from 1956, The Mole People. Another Shout Factory release directed by Virgil Vogel, starring John Agar, Cynthia Patrick, and Hugh Beaumont.
Doesn't Virgil Vogel sound like something that would be in Marvel Comics about a guy that becomes like a supervillain?
Yeah, Virgil Vogel. Yeah, that's his alter ego.
Yeah.
Definitely sounds like that. This one has two presentations of the film, one in 185 and one in 2. I don't know how you pronounce it, 2.00.
What is that one? I don't think I've seen.
I've never seen that aspect ratio.
Yeah, that's it. If anyone out there that I'm sure,
I'll ask ask my buddy work Terry. He knows everything about film ratios. So.
Yeah, and Paul too. Paul work on that for us too.
Yeah, that's interesting. A new audio commentary with film historians.
Yay.
Historians. There's two of them:
Oh.
Tom Weaver and David Schechter. I would do the ding, but my voice just isn't up to it.
Yeah, it's okay.
The new Of Mushrooms and Mad Men, The Making of the Mole People. The Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode, The Mole People.
Right, I remember that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
and standard definition. That's a great extra. Still galleries and a theatrical trailers. That sounds like a fun disc.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, did I read I don't know if I read the synopsis.
No, you didn't, actually, but that's...
A party of archaeologists discovers the remnants of a mutant 5 millennia-old Sumerian civilization living beneath a glacier atop a mountain in Mesopotamia, which
Did they meet
is not what I
Zool?
expected. It's not what I expected from the Mole People, but okay. Next up, this one sounded interesting. This is called Wacko. It's from 1982. It's released by Vinegar Syndrome, directed by Graydon Clark, starring Joe Don Baker, Stella Stevens, and our beloved favorite George Kennedy.
Yay.
Cops try to track down the infamous lawnmower killer, and this one definitely looks advertised. If you look at the box art, it definitely looks more comedy than horror. But it did have the little horror tag, so I included it. has a brand new 4K restoration from the 35mm camera negative, a brand new commentary track with director Graydon Clark, Die Laughing, an interview with cinematographer Nicholas von Sternberg.
That's been on other special features. Die Laughing must be a podcast or a show or something.
Maybe,
yeah. Because I've heard that we've had that before.
Never before seen outtakes in a trailer. So I've never heard of that movie, but it might be one to check out if you like horror comedies.
Yeah.
This next one is Invasion of the Blood Farmers from 1972. Severin Films releasing this one, directed by Ed Adlam, starring Norman Kelly, Tana Hunter, and Bruce Detrick. Somewhere in upstate New York, Brian, a young woman is terrorized by a group of rural farmers primarily interested in a harvest of blood.
Listen, this was 1972. I was just born, so I was not part of this.
This has a new transfer of the film, an audio commentary with director Ed Adlam and actress Ortram Tipple.
Whoever that person's not even in the three big ones, so where did they get this person from?
Moderated by Kirla Janice, author of House of Psychotic Women. I've heard of this book, actually. I actually want to pick this book up, House of Psychotic Women. I've heard it in reference to another movie. Maybe one of the Paul Naschy movies, actually.
Oh, yeah. That would make sense.
Yeah, Nothing You'd Show Your Mom. Eddie Adlam's journey through exploitation, coin-op, and rock and roll. Harvesting the Dead, an interview with actor Jack Newbeck. Painful Memories, an interview with cinematographer Frederick Elms, and a trailer. So that sounds like an interesting disc.
I wonder if these actors that they're introducing, these interviewing, are even in the movie because they're not in the top three.
Yeah, maybe they just interview the extras.
Yeah, they're like, hey, you were policeman number 1. Could you come over here?
This next one's going to challenge my pronunciations along with my voice. It's called Rampant. It's from last year, 2018, released by Wellgo USA.
Oh, they're back.
Yeah, they're back. Directed by Sung-Hoon Kim, starring Hyun Bin, Dong-gun Jang, and Yoi Sung Kim.
Hey, that was pretty good.
I hope I did that halfway justice. Lee Chung is a prince of Joseon, but he has been taken hostage to the King dynasty. He enjoys boozing, womanizing, and gambling, but who doesn't, really?
Right.
He is also an excellent swordsman. His older brother, Lee Young, will succeed to the throne and brings Lee Chung to Joseon. He returns after more than 10 years. Soon, Lee Chung faces monsters that run rampant in the night.
If only they gave some detail about the plot.
Yeah. So a very explicitly defined summary there, but it did have a horror element to it. So if you like kind of martial arts, samurai type stuff mixed with some horror, it sounded kind of interesting. So I put it on the rundown. The next one up is one I'm going to let Brian guess. And unfortunately, Brian, this one doesn't have much of a synopsis to begin with. So you have a good chance of getting this one right.
Oh, boy. Okay.
This one is called Beast of the Yellow Night. It's from 1971. It's released by VCI Entertainment. Directed by Eddie Romero. Starring John Ashley, Mary Charlotte Wilcox, and Leopoldo Salcido.
Okay, so Yellow Night. It is spelled Night, N-I-G-H-T.
N-I-G,
so it's not like a medieval knight. So
that's night.
It helps. But okay, so Beast of the Yellow Night. So I would have to assume a Yellow Night is got to be like one of the. Maybe it takes place in Alaska where it's still sunny out, and their nights are like 1 hour long or something. I don't know. So I'm thinking maybe that has something to do with that, where it takes place there, and there's some kind of beast that is unearthed after years of being trapped under the ice.
Okay, well, you managed to get it wrong, but
okay.
This is what the official synopsis says, and it doesn't clear anything up for me. It says, Satan saves Ashley from death on condition he become his disciple, and as it turns out, a hairy, murderous beast.
Yeah, that helps. No, that explains nothing about the Yellow Knight. It explains the beast, but...
So this does have a new audio commentary with two film historians, Howard S. Berger and Nathaniel Thompson. So... also has a video interview with director Eddie Romero and TV spots and reversible cover art. So I kind of want to see this one, actually.
Well, now I do. I just
next up, a great one from the early 80s, Mausoleum from 1983, released by Vinegar Syndrome, directed by Michael Dugan, starring Marjo Gortner, Bobby Bressie, and Norman Burton. Traumatized by her mother's death, young Susan is becoming possessed by the same demon that possessed her mother before she died. More and more, her husband and psychiatrist are noticing the strange changes.
I want to say I saw this once.
I feel like I've seen this one too. It does have a new 4K scan. Making Monsters video interview with special effects makeup artist John Carl Buechler.
Oh, he's actually, that's, speaking of that, I forgot to put that around. He's actually suffering from cancer right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a whole Kickstarter going about this. I think I shared it on our Twitter. If not, it's been up. It's been a lot on Twitter lately, so I'm sure you can look at it. But yeah, unfortunately, he's I guess there's like a GoFundMe for him.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
It does have a theatrical trailer, TV spots, and a still gallery, and our staple of reversible cover artwork. If you just like reversing covers out there.
Yeah.
And last but not least, The Possession of Hannah Grace. This is one that came out late last year. Sony Pictures, directed by Diedrich van Rooyen.
Yeah, close enough.
Maybe a Dutch name, I don't know. Starring Shay Mitchell, Gray Damon. Oh, Gray Damon. We like that. That's the Gray Damon.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about him before.
Yeah.
Lest you go out on the Mars and run into the Gray Damon. And Kirby Johnson. When a cop who is just out of rehab takes the graveyard shift in a city hospital morgue, she faces a series of bizarre violent events caused by an evil entity in one of the corpses.
I think I even made a picture of Gray Damon, didn't I? Like he was like Gandalf the Gray Damon?
Yeah,
Okay.
you did.
Yeah.
You did. That's where Gray Damon was. Yeah.
That's right.
That's funny. Yeah, and no theatrical releases this week, unfortunately, but
I'll
still need to see Happy Death Day, so I don't need any more to come out.
You need to get out there as soon as you're feeling better.
Yeah. Maybe next weekend I'll be able to catch it.
It's doing well. I think it already like tripled its budget or something. I read.
Nice.
So that's good. So there'll be definitely some. It's good. It's getting some good reviews in. So it's nice to see.
All right. Well, we have a big one for our main feature this week. This is, of course, Alien from 1979, directed by Ridley Scott, starring the fantastic Sigourney Weaver as Ripley, the fantastic Tom Skerritt as Dallas, the phenomenal John Hurt as Kane, Veronica Cartwright as Lambert, Harry Dean Stanton as Brett, Ian Holm as Ash, and Yaphet Kotto as Parker. I mean, what a cast
it
this
really
has.
was, yeah. And actually, I guess we'll get to the trivia later. There's a lot of stuff, but I don't know if I put this even on there. But this is the first out of the big, the four big Alien movies where Sigourney Weaver did not get the starring credit.
Yep, Tom Skerritt got
Tom
starring.
Skerritt got it, yeah.
Of course, if you have been living under a rock and have not seen this movie, after a space merchant vessel, the Nostromo, perceives an unknown transmission as a distress call, its landing on the source moon finds one of the crew attacked by a mysterious life form, and they soon realize that its life cycle has merely begun. And of course, this is the movie that spawned basically an entire universe of not only films, but video games.
Comics, right?
Toys, tons of comics. Yeah, there's actually, Brian, even in the comic book store recently, I've seen they've been releasing comics of some of the unedited first scripts and stuff. They've done comics of those that have a lot of deleted stuff in them.
Yeah,
so
and actually, I have this usually where we would save this for when we go through the little trivia. But since you kind of brought it up, though, this has a distinction too. It's the first R-rated film to ever receive a tie-in series of toys marketed towards children. And I remember that as a kid, but like I didn't get to see it when I was that little. But I remember my mom had seen it. But we were in the toy store and they had that big alien figure. Remember that? You could make the mouth come out and everything.
Oh, a friend of mine had it.
Oh,
I actually
really?
played with this thing. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I remember it scared the crap out of me. And I didn't know what it was from, of course. I was far too young to have seen the movie at the time. But he actually owned it. I bet he wish he still had it today because I'm sure that thing's worth a ton of money.
Yeah, I mean, they've come out with, replica versions of it. But, that original one, of course, it had that, non-quality is not the right word, but it definitely was not detailed as they are now. So it was at that point there was something just cool about and simple about those toys.
It's kind of funny looking back on them now because in my mind when I remembered it, it was so terrifying. But when you look back at the actual original one now, it looks kind of kind of
yeah,
clunky.
like it's like no detail in the coloring
No.
of it, or the
It's just-
it's just like it's like one drab color, I think, and it's,
Yeah.
it's funny.
Kind of funny how your memories are so much better than the real thing when you look
Yeah.
back on it as an adult.
But I just remember it was a big toy, and that was like
It was huge,
It was
yeah.
like the size of those almost that Godzilla one. I remember. Remember that Godzilla one that everyone had, where it shoots the
Yep.
fist off.
Oh, the same guy had that same Godzilla.
I had that Godzilla. Yeah, I had that.
I didn't
one.
have these toys. My mom didn't make enough money to buy this kind of toys. We had it. I was the GoBots kid. I didn't have the Transformers.
Well, I just had the Godzilla one, but my friend, he had the Godzilla and the Shogun robots that were his
Oh,
equal
yeah.
his size that would fight him. So I remember that was pretty cool. And it's funny, I still have the Godzilla, believe it or not, except it's missing the fist, because that shoots off. And
Yeah.
the funny thing is that even the I think the handle on the back of his neck that would shoot the fire is still there. It's a little broken off, but you could still activate it. But the fist, it's funny. People actually sell remade replica fists because everybody seems to have lost that piece.
Yeah.
So you could actually find on eBay. It was like $50 to just get this fist. I'm like, not
That's
right
funny.
now, yeah. But eventually I
Well,
may fix it.
It's funny that I didn't see Alien until way later in life because when I was younger, I remember, this is kind of just a silly story, but I used to be an avid Mad Magazine reader. Like, I would read the heck out of Mad Magazine. And my granddad would buy me like the big digest versions that had reprints of the back issues.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember one of the big specials that I had the parody of Alien in it. And that was my first exposure to this movie as a kid, other than the toy. So I kind of, quote unquote, saw the movie through the Mad Magazine parody. And the one thing in the parody that they kept stressing over and over was how gory and gruesome the film was. And it actually made me not want to see it. I was scared to see it for many years because that Mad Magazine parody had warned how like vomit-inducing and terribly gross this movie was, and I kind of avoided it for a long time. Now, granted, when we got into the VHS era and I was able to actually rent the thing, I finally did get around to seeing it. But it's kind of funny that my first exposure to it was kind of a terror born out of a Mad Magazine article.
Yeah, I think it was. I remember there being a fold-in for it too. Remember the back where you'd fold in the thing? I think
Yeah.
there was an Alien fold-in, if I remember correctly. But yeah, it's funny because now by today's standards, the gore is like so not.
It's not
factor.
that.
I mean, it's still great effects for the time. And actually, that was one of the things one of the talking points I was going to make too is. I watched this on my quadrilogy Blu-ray. Finally, I mean, I'd seen it enough times, but I finally actually opened this version of it on Blu-ray, and and I know this isn't even 4K, and the image was amazing on it. And I mean, it just shows that the effects, even for the time, were good. Like that, the opening sequences with the spaceship, just like it looked like it was filmed recently. That's how good the disc was on it. So it was really great to see that it still holds up in terms of effects wise. Like I mean, it was obviously remastered for Blu-ray, but now it wasn't a 4K transfer. I can't even imagine what that would look like now.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that I just read that Samsung is getting out of the Blu-ray business. They're not even going to be releasing any more Blu-ray players.
Really?
Yeah, I read an article about that.
Was
today,
it all 4K
actually.
stuff?
Even their regular Blu-ray, they're not going to release because apparently half of the discs sold in the U.S. And I'm talking U.S. market only, but half of the discs sold in the U.S. are still DVD. So the Blu-ray really has not caught on in the U.S. like it has.
Really?
Yeah. So I mean, we don't see it because we're aficionados and we like our horror movies and we collect our Blu-rays and that kind of thing. We don't realize that in general, the public just really hasn't embraced Blu-ray like we have. And so Samsung getting out of the business, which is, I mean, they're a big player. So it doesn't bode well. Again, they cited not only the U.S. market not embracing Blu-ray and just keep buying disc on DVD, but also the streaming stuff is really killing physical media, which is unfortunate because you just said how good the Blu-ray quality was.
Yeah.
I watched this on Amazon Prime Rental, and obviously the quality's nowhere near what you would see on a Blu-ray, and it's just unfortunate that we're getting to a point where I'm afraid these manufacturers are going to be just abandoning physical media, and we're going to be stuck with this crap low-res stuff.
But yeah, but I read an article. Someone was writing this, and it was the reason why a lot of people, like, they think that like physical media will have a major comeback, for the fact that like where some companies are now. I think iTunes first did it, where literally they were just randomly like you could not stream anymore, even if you own the film. Like you just lost it, and then basically they apparently somewhere in the fine print, I guess they said, well, that's it, because people were like trying to sue, and they were like, well, no, it says here you don't actually, and just like to me, I'm like, yeah, that's not something I don't want to spend $20 and find out a year later that I don't own it anymore. Yeah,
I mean, I think there will always be a physical media market for collectors and stuff. I think there will always be some form of that. And I think that's where Blu-ray is really thriving right now, is with like, the shout factories and those kind of release these collector's disc to collectors. But it'll be interesting to see in a few years where Blu-ray ends up, if it's just a niche little collector's market or if it's, gone. I don't know.
I still see people though. If I go to Best Buy, I still see people. They're walking up with a couple of Blu-rays. I rarely see the DVDs being purchased.
I know Walmart, they used to have, them separated. I remember they used to have like the big clearance bin of Blu-rays at Walmart, and they don't have that anymore. Like you can't find that anymore. I don't know. It's very strange. I don't.
We need to bring it back, Tim.
Yeah, we got to single-handedly bring back Blu-ray.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the movie. Of course, this movie was. I was sitting here. It was interesting. I was thinking about the movie and about what a strong heroine Ripley was in the movie, and how it was so fantastic to see this strong female lead in this movie. But at the same time, when I was reading through the trivia, I saw that they had not wanted this to be a typical horror movie in which there's a final girl.
Right.
And Ripley actually doesn't end up being the final girl in kind of the horror trope. And I never thought of her that way for some reason. I never thought of her as a final girl. I always thought of her as a lead action character, maybe.
Right.
And
I mean, she's a final girl in the literal sense.
Right. Yeah. I guess that was just kind of funny that I didn't see her as a maybe kind of a helpless victim who somehow winds up at the end getting the upper hand. To me, she was always strong throughout.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe that's the difference.
Yeah. No, she doesn't fit the final girl trope if you look at her as just her. But if you look at the overall movie, where you end up with a final survivor that happens to be female, you may look at it that way briefly, because, there's debates where people still debate online whether it's a horror film or not. And to me, that's ridiculous. It's a complete horror film if you look at the basics of it and a lot of the similar tropes to a horror film. I mean, you have basically, like if you do it this way, if like you replace... Which I was going to say, let's say you replace it with Jason Voorhees, well, you basically have Jason X at some level. So there you go. But, if you replace it, and that's the same argument I have when, for people wonder if Jaws is a horror movie. I mean, come on. What are you looking, it's like, I think people think horror movies, they look at it as such a specific thing, and it's not, number one.
Well, replace the spaceship with a house.
Right.
What do you have? You've got a horror movie. I mean,
right. So why is
it's even filmed that way in some sequences where they're just showing at the end of the beginning of the movie, they're showing panning shots of this creepy derelict spaceship, or not derelict, but isolated spaceship, because they haven't woken up out of hibernation yet, and they're showing these just empty rooms, and it looks just like a haunted house movie. It really does.
No, and if you think about it, like look at the basic plot. Now I'm going to basically like minimize the greatness of this movie into some basic things. So I apologize, because I think that's one of the best horror films made. But so if you think about it, right, you have you have a group of people. They stumble upon something they probably shouldn't have stumbled upon or messed with. So they accidentally, against the warning of one, which was Ripley. So right off the beginning, she's kind of saying, no, you're not following protocol. So they all disobey an order or a rule that's out there, especially to prevent the situations that was going to happen. But it's broken, just like a bunch of teenagers who are told, hey, don't go to that camp. You end up there, then they start getting picked off one by one, And, and sorry, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this movie, then I don't really know what you've been watching. But, and at the end, when you think she's safe, nope, the killer, in this case the alien, comes back for one more scare and then is finally ultimately defeated for now. So, it's like, if you look formulaically, it's completely a horror movie. Yes.
Yeah, and even Ridley Scott said it was inspired by Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Right.
So, yeah.
So, and it's a brilliant horror movie at that, and it's got great performances, great cast. And the one thing it has going for it is because at the time, it's like there were some just the techniques I think that were used that were borrowed from other films to make that weren't necessarily horror films either. Like I saw they were I think Star Wars inspired them, I think, and you could tell that on some of the spaceship shots where they made the spaceship like go look really super massive by just a long panning shot like that. And and like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there's those sequences of like this just there's just so many things you can look at. And it's funny, while I was watching this now, I realized how much Jason X totally ripped off for this movie.
Yeah, really did, yeah.
I mean, you kind of knew there was that element watching it anyway, but now you really see, I'm like, oh my God, it's apparent, because I hadn't seen this in a while. And I realize now, I'm like, why haven't I watched this in so long? I forgot how much I liked it.
I think one of the things that really struck me when I first saw it was I had always known sci-fi from the Star Wars perspective and the TV show perspective, like Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica and stuff like that. I had never seen sci-fi mixed with horror. And so this like blew my mind that these genres could be mixed in such a way. And this is like a truly scary film.
Yeah.
And the sci-fi is very gritty and realistic. That's another thing I had not been exposed to up to that point, because Star Wars, of course, is not hard sci-fi by any means.
No,
it's more of a
very
fantasy, very light sci-fi. So I'd never been exposed to that real gritty, realistic type sci-fi or near future sci-fi. And that combined with the horror, I mean, this was just a mind-blowing experience for me when I first saw this movie.
Yeah, and if you think about it, right, and you touched on something earlier too, where you're like, oh, replace the ship with a house. Well, actually, if you think about it, right, you're what makes this more frightening is it's scary enough just being in space and not sure, like we mentioned, like in Blair Witch, it's kind of scary just being lost in the woods, let alone. But now here they're in space with, you don't know if they'll be able to make it back, even if this alien wasn't even on the ship, because they've had damages and they've had crew issues, and you don't, and now there's the whole plot going on with the company that is like, wants them, basically has secretly deemed them expendable. So there's that. And then you got Ash's malfunctions. And so you got all this going on, not even counting it. But, like, think about that. If that's on in a house, well, there's always that sense of, like, well, if I could just get out of the house and get down to the road and flag someone down, I maybe can get out of this. How are you doing that in space? It's not like someone's going to drive by and go, hey, come on in. We'll pick you up.
That actually made me think, Brian, I bet you could remove the alien from this movie and just have the twist with Ash in there. As kind of rogue cyborg on here, and them being isolated in space and can't get back home would still make a terrific movie.
Oh yeah,
even without the alien.
Yeah, you totally could, and that shows the how good this movie was. It was like there was like multi-level.
I dare say
it scared.
It might have even been a classic even without the alien in it, which is phenomenal if you think about it. So you could see how in a few years' time, Blade Runner, it has that same kind of gritty, realistic sci-fi feel to it. But yeah, I bet you it would have been a classic even without the alien. Could have been, I should say.
Oh yeah. And it's funny. I think the alien added a markability to it, though. I think at that the audience now has a direct kind of marketable villain, as opposed to just like a rogue cyborg of a British guy, So, but yeah, no, I mean, it's just it's like, I mean, obviously, if you have not seen this yet, I do not know what you're waiting for, because this is a movie that any horror fan should have seen time and time again. Now, granted, the franchise is not all like this. Of course, it goes into pure sci-fi or like in the second one, which is great on its own, but it definitely does not hold up to the horror aspect of the first one.
Right.
Of course.
And Brian and I even discussed doing the Alien franchise as a summer slaycation. And I think we came to the conclusion that the first movie was really the only felt like the most true horror movie, and the other ones it got a little bit too action sci-fi for what we would want for a summer slaycation series. So even though it's a great series, I still enjoy all of them, even the weaker entries. I mean, I enjoyed Prometheus and I enjoyed Alien Covenant. Some people don't like those. I've enjoyed all of them on some level just because I love the xenomorphs and I love the creature design. So but yeah, the first one is definitely the horror movie of the franchise.
Yeah. Has there ever been an Alien? I don't think there's been a Halloween Horror Nights Alien thing. I mean, the closest thing I remember is the scene in the Great Movie Ride at Disney.
Yeah,
Hollywood Studios, which was a great sequence.
Yeah, it scared the kids half to death for some reason.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, I loved it. And of course, they wanted to go back and see it again and again. That was their favorite part. That was Anna's favorite part.
She's funny, Anna, because remember she gets scared at stuff and then does it and then loves it.
Yeah, she doesn't like to be victimized, and so if anything scares her, she wants to go back and conquer it. I love that about her.
Yep, she's going to be Ripley.
She's going to be Ripley. Yeah, she will. She's a tough little girl. So I really enjoyed this one. Watching it again today.
Pick up that Blu-ray, Tim. Though, pick up that set when you get a chance. Look for it on sale because it looks great, and there's a lot of cool features on there.
So let's go through some of the trivia here. Of course, the alien design was inspired by H.R. Giger, and he does some just fantastic art. I remember there was a video game he did. I wish I could remember the name of it. Somebody out there probably knows. And it was inspired by his artwork. It wasn't Alien. It was a different, like a point-and-click adventure game. I used to play that for hours and hours because it was so creepy. He uses that biomechanical look. And one of the trivia here was that his original illustrations of the alien had eyes. And then for the movie, Giger insisted that the creature have no eyes, thus making him look more bleak and having that appearance of a cold and emotionless beast that hunts by smell, which I think was a great idea. Like the lack of eyes just makes it look even creepier. I mean, have you ever seen like those cave animals that are born without eyes? Like the eyeless fish and stuff. They're just so creepy.
Well, it's a lot scarier when you can't, like, when the thing sees you without, knows you're there without looking at you, because it's not like you can go behind him now or to the side of him.
Yeah.
It'll know you're there, so. One of the things that I thought was, cracks me up because you've heard this and you've seen this spoofed actually in movies so much, where it was like, they said many producers have professional readers that read and summarize scripts for them. And they said the reader in this case summarized it as, it's like Jaws, but in space. And the reason why I laugh at that so much, because how many times have you seen that, or when they joke about like, oh, it's like Speed, but but on a boat, which in Speed 2, or hey, it's like Jaws, but in a farmhouse. It's like people have used those kind of things. It's so funny, those funny pitches. And so I thought that was funny that this one was actually this. I mean, maybe this was one of the first ones that started them all. I don't know.
Now, the original cut of the film ran 3 hours and 12 minutes. Has that ever been? How long is the director's cut? I mean,
the director's cut's actually a minute shorter because I saw a thing saying that it's not that Ridley Scott still believes that the original theatrical cut was the definitive version of the film. He kind of got pressured into. I think the producer, the company, like the producers, kind of pressured him into creating a director's cut for marketability. Oh. And so what happened was he added certain sequences, but yet took out some others. So I think it ended up being a minute shorter and really didn't help the plot in any way. Like, it's just a couple of deleted scenes that like fans wanted back in. But I guess there was one where she oh my God, Veronica Cartwright slaps Sigourney Weaver. something. There was a sequence with that. I think there was an extended scene with that or something. I'm not sure. I don't remember it all. I just remember reading about a whole big thing about that. Because I was wondering. I said, should I watch the director's cut? Because I know I haven't. I wasn't sure if I had seen that version of it, but then I know I'd seen the original a bunch of times, so I decided to just go watch the original since for the podcast makes more sense.
Yeah, I may have to pick up those comic books that go through some of the lost scripts type scenes and stuff. That sounds like it'd be really interesting to read. One thing here I did not know was Harrison Ford turned down the role of Captain Dallas. That was an interesting bit of trivia.
Yeah, because I mean, I could kind of see him in that, but, then again, he did enough space and futuristic things, I think.
I can imagine he would probably, I mean, that's very close to Star Wars. He was probably like, no thanks, I've already done this other thing, so I could see that.
Yeah,
I love
he would have just done at Star Wars at this point.
Yeah,
probably starting to plan for Indy and a bunch of other stuff at this point.
Now, I love this bit of trivia, and I actually want to read this because it gives the original ending to the movie. And this is fascinating to me because it's so dark. But the original script ended with Ripley escaping the Nostromo with her shuttle and the alien dying on board the Nostromo, which would be pretty cut and dry, right? So Ridley Scott thought that was way too simplistic, so he negotiated for extra budget money and a week of filming to add the fourth act to the movie, showing how the alien stowed away aboard the shuttle and Ripley trying to flush it out. But he originally wanted this much darker ending, and I love this, where the alien comes back into the shuttle, Ripley harpoons it, but it makes no difference. The alien runs towards her, slams through her mask, rips her head off. It would then sit in her chair and start mimicking Captain Dallas's voice, saying, "I'm signing off. Hopefully the network will pick me up." So that was a very creepy ending. I don't know if I would like the alien mimicking his voice thing. That sounds kind of corny, but the idea that the alien would basically kill Ripley and then make his way to Earth is kind of frightening.
Yeah, and obviously the franchise would never have been the same if they took out the Ripley character so fast. But, it's funny, though. It almost then that implies that they would have seems like they always wanted at some point the aliens to end up on Earth. Because remember, there's always that story I've told a bunch of times where I saw the teaser for it, which you could see online on YouTube. Just search an original teaser for Alien 3, where the plot was that, where it said, oh, in 1979, you've learned that... in space, no one can hear you scream, but in 1980, whatever, it's like, or 1990, whatever, you'll find out that Earth, everyone can hear you scream. And it was just the egg. And I was like, oh, they're coming to Earth. But really, we got that later on, kind of with Independence Day. So, I don't know if, I mean, it would have been cool for this franchise to go that way, but,
Yeah, I wanted to mention before we get off of the subject of the movie, Brian, is the Alien Isolation video game. Have you heard of that one?
I've heard of it. I don't know much about it, though.
It came out about 4 years ago. I think it was released in 2014. But it is a very realistic portrayal of the Alien movie where you are a survivor. You actually play the daughter of Ripley. And it takes place 15 years after the end of Alien. And you're investigating the disappearance of your mother. And this one is not like previous Alien games in which which are basically action shooters. This is an actual stealth and survival horror game. So you're trying to outsmart the creature. You don't have weapons and stuff to fight it. You're on a ship with the xenomorph, trying to basically hide and creep around and solve puzzles and try to outsmart it. And it is absolutely terrifying. It's the scariest game I've ever played.
Is it on PC or?
It's on PC. You could probably pick it up really cheap now because it's an older game.
I wonder if Steam has it. I should look.
Oh, they do.
Oh, they do?
Definitely have it. Yeah, I've got it on Steam.
I might have to go grab that.
Phenomenal game. Well worth the money. So if you guys have not played Alien Isolation and you're a fan of this movie, I mean, it is like living the movie. They've got every aspect of the ship looks identical to the film. So atmospheric. It's an absolutely terrifying game. I haven't beaten it because I can't get through the whole thing because it terrifies the crap out of me.
Oh, now I got to get it. Well, I still have some points left on my Steam account, so maybe I'll just order that later.
Yeah, you will absolutely love it, Brian. I guarantee you.
Oh, nice. So one more final. We have a lot of trivia here, but obviously we don't want to read the whole thing. But here's just another interesting piece, which it's funny if you think about it. It really does. You realize that it's part of the brilliance of this film. But so the xenomorph only has 4 minutes of screen time and doesn't make its first appearance until about an hour into the film. So that's, that's another thing. They go back to that, shark and Jaws. You really don't see it until, really late into the film where you really get to see it. And so it's, if you think about it, that you almost like it plays tricks on you, because you like if you think back to it if you haven't seen it in a while, you kind of remember it being in the film a lot more, mostly probably because of the marketing, the toys, the sequels.
Yeah.
But if you think about this one, literally you realize, wow, it really wasn't in it that much.
No, I actually noticed
close
that.
Shots.
Yeah, I actually noticed that this time around. I was looking at the timestamp when it first appeared, and I was like, oh my God, it's been over an hour. And we haven't seen it yet, but you're right. Now, granted, there's some other stuff. You get the face hugger and all that kind of stuff. That. So it's not like you're not seeing anything, but it is interesting how little screen time it actually has.
Right, and it manages to kill off 5 people, but it's
yeah.
by the time you see it. So yeah, it's just really, really just a great movie. I mean, we'll talk about it for hours about the greatness of it, but just go if you haven't watched it in a while, do yourself a favor, go watch it again. Definitely pick up that disc, the set of the series, because it's great visuals on it. It's a really good disc, and it comes with all this great special features. It does have the director's cut, which I may just watch now out of morbid curiosity, kind of see. But I think I will always prefer the original.
And I don't think this has ever been equaled in terms of horror sci-fi as a film. I don't think it's ever been equaled.
So.
So, definitely one of my favorites of all time. So, Brian, you had a fantastic beer pairing for this one. I want to hear about this.
Yes. So this one, and it's funny, I had to I will preface this now. It's a foreign brewery, so I had to literally translate this on Google. So I apologize when I read the description if it doesn't read properly. But anyway, the beer is Ripley. And it's an Imperial Mug Cake Stout.
Oh my gosh, this sounds like Olivia's dream.
Yeah,
here.
This one sounds really good. It's got 10% ABV, and it's by the Drunken Brothers, which is where they brew this beer out of a place called Bascaroy, which is in Bilbao. I'm not sure how to say it. It's
Bilbo
northern
Baggins.
Spain. Yeah, Bilbo Baggins' house. It's in the Shire. But yeah, so it's basically this bakery and brewery combined kind of a place.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, so here's the description, and now this, like I said, this is translated from Spanish on Google Translate, so it probably doesn't do it justice, but it says, we are facing an imperial stout of 10 degrees with bourbon vanilla from Madagascar, cocoa, lactose, and Colombian coffee. Intense aroma of cocoa with hints of vanilla and coffee that can remind us of a dessert. Once in the mouth, it appears dense, at the same time silky and delicate. Predominantly the same flavors that characterize the aromas, an intense ending that lasts in, and that's where it cut off after the
That sounds awesome, though.
But yeah, it does sound really good. And so the malts are pale, carafa, caramel, toasted barley, and oats. The hops are bullion and Northern Brewer, which I never heard of, either one of them. I don't know if it's like chicken soup, the bullion. I don't know. It says it attachments, and so I guess that's what they added it for the flavor. So it's Colombian coffee, vanilla bourbon, cocoa, and lactose.
Oh my gosh.
And the yeast is an English ale, so it's probably a very thick.
It sounds like you need to eat it with a fork.
I do, yeah. When they say mug cake stout, I'm wondering if it's like it's in the bottle, but you just open the bottle up and you have like a cake inside.
That's what it sounds like.
Interesting. I got to track this thing down. I think it'll be very hard because I'm not planning on going to Spain anytime soon. But maybe I'll see if some of the breweries that get some good imports might have it.
So our triple threat last week, we were asking you for a fictional character. Clue 1 was, I have appeared in 2 films, yet the second one was not a sequel to the first. Clue 2 was, I have been portrayed by 2 different people. And clue 3 was, I'll usually hang around all night, yet when it comes to dawn, I'll split. And the answer we were looking for was Art the Clown.
Yes, we thought that was a nice, easy one for you
That was a low ball across the plate. So Art the Clown first appeared in All Hallows Eve and then Terrifier, which, other than Art, were unrelated. So he was a character in the first, but Terrifier was not a sequel to that film. And he was portrayed by 2 different people. He was portrayed by Mike Gianelli in All Hallows Eve, and of course David Howard Thornton in Terrifier. And our last clue, when we talked about hanging around all night, yet when it comes to Dawn, I'll split. Of course, one of the most famous scenes in Terrifier is when he splits the character Dawn down the middle with a hacksaw. So that's where we're going.
So there's our
with
little
that.
play on words.
Yeah. So this week we have another fictional character we're looking for.
I think this is kind of an easy one, too.
I think you guys can get this one. And just listen very carefully to the clues. Clue number 1. If I fell down, I'm not sure anyone would hear me. Clue number 2. I eat light meals, so I would prefer a roommate who doesn't bake. And clue number 3. I have nothing against children, but I'm not a huge fan of babies.
Yeah, I think this one might be even easier than the last one.
I think it is.
I wanted to give because we've gotten. I mean, granted, we want this to be tricky, but we don't also want you to hate us.
Yeah,
which I'm worried we're crossing that line at this point with some of them. So we gave some, but I got some. I don't know if Tim, if you looked ahead in our file where I bet, but I went ahead and made some. So we have about a month's worth in the wings to just pull out. I put some pretty tricky ones in there though.
No, I haven't looked ahead because I enjoy just being surprised myself. So.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I got a couple of good ones coming up.
All right.
So.
Well, guys, we're going to cut a little short. My voice is starting to give out, but again, like we said, no full episode next week, but we will have a Steve Cohn rundown of all the stuff at Toy Fair. So be on the lookout for that, and of course, follow us on Instagram, Gmail, Facebook, Twitter. We're everywhere out there. Drop us a line. Let us know how we're doing. We always enjoy getting feedback from you guys. And, of course, leave us an iTunes review. It helps us out, and it also enters you into a drawing for a Civil Gore prize pack with lots of cool little horror-related goodies in it and a Blu-ray. So you guys definitely want to get those reviews in.
Oh, and we actually got an email. One of our listeners, Greg, had asked, and so this for everyone out there: if you already had left a review, you're still eligible. Even if you left one like a year ago or when we first started or whenever, anyone that left a review, any review that's in there counts.
Right, absolutely right. Yep. All right, guys. So we'll see you back here next week, and well, I couldn't think of a good tagline.
I got one for you.
Okay, well, I guess in podcasts, no one can hear you come up with a clever tagline.
Well, that was kind of my thing. I was going to say in podcasting, no one can hear you scream, but so we should have got together on that one and planned that better.
Yeah.
But anyway,
well, nobody can hear me scream anyway because I can't at this point.
Yes, and unfortunately, you could all hear me scream. So
later, guys.
See ya.